Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Schick, and I'm excited today to be painting more clones. If you joined us last week, you would have seen that we did the Clone Specialist pack. We did 3 of the characters from that pack in 104th Battalion Wolf Pack colors. Today, I have a new unit of Phase 2 clones that I'm looking forward to getting on the table, and I want them to match those specialists. So we're going to be following a lot of the same techniques that we used last time, except we're going to be applying those to a more specific unit painting kind of style. So we're not going to do as much variation or individualization to try to burn through these folks a little faster because we have a number of them to paint. And then if we have time, I'm hoping to get to a point where we can kind of do some finishing touches that I wasn't able to do on the stream last week and show you how I kind of approach finishing off this clone armor style that I've been doing. So with that, let's dive right in and move forward because we've only got an hour. So really quick, just to kind of recap how I have decided to do my whites on my clones is I use the airbrush for this because it allows me to do it really quickly. So I start with a very dark gray, I move to a light gray, and then I hit it with a pure white from a zenith. So you're looking at getting everything dark, doing the light gray pretty much everywhere, allowing the airbrush to kind of let those shadows like blend in and stuff. And then I hit it from effectively a 45 to basically top down angle with the white to get that color. And that gives me a really nice gradation that works really, really well. And then when I use my finishing touch to shade down the armor, you wind up with a really nice looking finished result that goes really, really fast and is really, really easy to do and actually utilizes oil paint. So if we don't get that today, I'll definitely make sure to do at least one stream in the future about how to use oil washes. I've been experimenting with them quite a bit, and I've really found a lot of fun in utilizing them, and they make some effects work really well, especially working with like armor like whites with the clones. So the first thing that we have to do on these fellas is I'm just going to mix up some flat black with a little bit of black ink. I'm going to water that down a little bit so I get kind of a washish consistency, a little bit thicker than your normal wash. And we're just going to start doing all of the black parts of the armor because our whites are done. And then once we have that part done, we will move on. Ooh, just drop my brush. Smooth, smooth. After we get that part all done, we'll move on and we will hit the unit markings. And from there, we will move into, ideally, we'll have a little bit of time left so we can start doing some of the oil washing techniques and we can talk a little bit about how that works. But if we don't get there today, I think we can always hit that a little later as well. So what I'm really looking for is I'm just looking for all those elements of the undersuit under the armor. I'm also going to use this wash on the blasters because it just works really well over that zenith primed color. And then any other elements that I want to not be white, or if I want them to be black, like for example, certain equipment, stuff like that, I will use as well. If I make a little bit of a mistake here and there, that's okay. It's not really a huge deal. You can always come back and fix it a little bit later. You do want this just kind of like flow in. I'm not even going to worry about his visor because it's hidden underneath. So his interior eyeline lenses, I'm just going to leave those alone because I don't think anyone's going to really see them once we're done. I'm just going to push that wash back, and this is okay because I plan on making that collar be some of our gray. So that's fine. We're just going to kind of work with it. Big goal here is to just be as clean as we can be in terms of keeping that white fairly free of the black where we don't want it. But if we slop a little bit over, we can always decide, and this is part of the fun part I think about clones, is that you can always, if you make a mistake and you're like, oh, I really messed up that white, rather than going back and fixing it, you can just make that part of the unique style of that clone's armor. So, for example, we kind of got a little heavy on our black here. If I decide I can't really fix it or I don't want to fix it, I could just make that piece of armor in the gray, or I could add some gray to it. So you get a lot of freedom and flexibility to correct your mistakes on the white by simply going back over it with the unit colors. Now, if you're doing pure white, like fresh shinies, you want to do some shinies, you're not going to have that option. So again, just being a little more careful and considerate about how and where you're applying stuff is going to pay dividends in the long run. But these are definitely not shinies. These boys These clones have seen some action. They have all personalized their armor in various ways. They're part of Commander Wolf's inner circle, I guess. Some of his elites here, so I'm totally okay with getting a little crazier on the markings. And like I said, if we do wind up making some kind of mistake that just seems like we can't fix it, or we don't want to go back and try to fix it because we're going fairly quick here, that's all right. We'll just fix it in a different step. And same token here, I'm not really too concerned with the blasters and the hands and making those colors very different. It is a fairly monochromatic kind of style. That's one of the striking things about like clones or stormtroopers, is that they're just that black and white. There's not a whole lot of real color to them until you start to liven them up, you know. But if you want that battalion ready parade ground look, you're really just going to focus on those really clean whites and blacks. Let's see here, kind of just going to pull some of that color away. If I shade down that part of the armor, it's all right as well, because we're not going to see it. It's in shadow anyway, so we're just kind of doing our job for us. Same token here, I'm just going to hit the tops of the legs and really quickly hit underneath the bottoms. That's just going to provide some extra contrast, and that'll play well in the future when we add that oil wash in. I want to be kind of fine with it, but can't recommend enough. Keep that second brush around. If you make a mistake, you can easily clean up that error really quick with no muss, no fuss. I think this fella looks good, so we'll move on to the next one. We're just going to repeat this process over and over again in the most exciting hour of painting ever. We're just going to move as fast as possible. So I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. This is your first stream of the week with us. We're very much looking forward to, in a couple weeks, doing our mini extravaganza, which is going to be our big kind of virtual con event for AMG. We have all kinds of panels and classes. We're going to hang out with Luke Eddy and the other members of the development team to talk about Legion and all Star Wars, X-Wing, Armada. We're going to have talks about that stuff as well. We're going to get a kind of a chance to discuss design philosophies, development philosophies. We'll take a little bit of time to look forward to the future and what you can expect coming from the developers over the course of the year. So that will be really fun. We're going to have hopefully some exciting reveals. I mean, I think they're exciting. I guess I say hopefully exciting because I hope they're exciting to all of you out there. We're going to have a lot of really great paint streams and classes. So John Safer, Dallas Kemp, myself, we're all going to be doing different seminars and classes. We call them fresh coats. We have some very different fresh coats to talk about different painting abilities. I'm going to be covering heavy armor. So some ideas on how to paint tanks and other big vehicles and miniatures really quickly and get great results. I just got a new set of makeup brushes in. I'm very excited to use those, not to do my makeup, but to paint my tanks. So we're going to talk about how stippling and dry brushing are your friends there. We've got Dallas Kemp, who's going to be doing a whole bunch of classes on skin tones. So you want to know how to paint human skin tones, he's got you covered. It's a whole separate class where he's going to be covering non-human skin tones. So you want to know how to paint like your Duroses, or let's say some other aliens that you got going on, maybe an Ithorian, something like that. That class is going to cover how to approach non-human skin tones of various types. I know skin tones are one of those big things we always talk about. You know, the most important area of the miniature is the face and the torso. We focus all our attention right here. As humans, you're looking at the face first. You got to know, is it an enemy? Is it a friend? You want to remember their face because that's how you're going to recognize them in the future. It's why we see faces in everything, you know, clouds, cars, all that stuff. So maximizing your ability to paint skin tones and get really good results quickly on faces can just be a huge boon to speed and efficiency when it comes to painting miniatures. Because if you can make those look great, you can really cheat everything else. You don't have to pay attention to the legs. Uh, you don't have to pay attention to the feet. No one's really going to look there. You can kind of just like let them mute out. The eyes don't really. The brain's lazy. It doesn't pick up those details. Unless you're going to go into a painting competition or something like that. There's really no need for you to have to worry about that kind of stuff. And it's a really great. Why am I worried about cleaning up that guy? We're going to fix him later. And it's a really great way to kind of, I don't want to say cheat. There's no cheating in painting, but to approach painting with an efficient standard that's going to get you the best results with as much effort as you want to put in. And if you want to put in a lot more, if like this is just the character you want to go into and you're going to make them look amazing. I've seen so many cool, Anakins and lately, and some really great Mauls since those two characters were released. I'm looking forward to seeing a slathering of Landos and Agent Calluses, which we painted on stream a couple weeks ago, and have just gotten out into a lot of people's hands, I believe, or will be getting into people's hands really soon. I can't remember my dates. I think those ones are already out. It's a specialist that'll be hitting shelves here very, very soon, if they haven't already come out already. I think it was March 12th is the date. BK or somebody from maybe Simone can correct me when I'm wrong. She loves doing that. But obviously you can take more time in terms of painting those characters and really lavishing on the techniques and the stuff that you've learned to get even better results. But when it comes to painting units and stuff like that, the eyeball is really going to take in when we're playing games and stuff. The eye is really just going to take in the whole unit as a whole. So if you keep your lines clean, keep them looking cohesive, have a nice base element to them, and make sure that that face and torso area looks really nice, you're going to be able to get away with a great looking unit without having to worry about, oh, did I highlight that boot just perfectly? You probably didn't, and that's okay. Why would you? It's a boot. Don't sweat it. Do not sweat it. Just have fun with it. Enjoy what you're doing, and maybe that one unit, like maybe this specific phase 2 clone unit, this is my elite unit. They've got the story behind them. They're part of the inner circle, so I might take a little bit extra time and really make them different and distinct. You'll notice I'm using my finger. They always say don't touch the miniature. Your finger works great to wipe off unwanted paint and excess stuff. If you get there, you don't have to worry about it. Come in, using the tip of that brush, in these. Now this is so riveting right now. Then we're going to move on. We're going to start doing the detailing. That's going to be the fun part. Just got to do the work. Got to do the work. Just come through and hit that. There's no cheating in painting. Contrast painting is really just washes, put into a bottle. It's the same as washing or inks or things like that. They're all just techniques, and you can do that type of painting. You can make those types of paints out of anything. It's just extender, it's medium and paint, and then a mix. So nothing is cheating. It's just utilizing those techniques and those thoughts. I mentioned how I'm getting really into this whole like using oil paints again. I've been watching a lot on that. And it seemed really mysterious and like, oh, that's high art. Why would I want to do that? But what I'm learning as I'm slowly like acclimating myself to this new technique is it's just blending. It's just wet blending that I used to do with acrylics, but it's made a lot easier by the nature of the paint itself. And there are also some really cool tricks that you can do with oils because of how they react. And by mixing those with my acrylics and the things that I already do, I'm coming up with these new ideas on how to approach stuff that's getting me really cool results in ways that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So never shy away from something because it feels like cheating. If it feels easy and it feels fun and satisfying, that's great. You can call it cheating. I mean, we always say, "Oh, that's cheating." You didn't suffer for your art. Yeah, this isn't art. This is a hobby. It's meant to be fun. No suffering required. You should never feel miserable when you sit down at the painting table and start laying into these things. This should be the part that's just so fun. You're like, "Oh, I'm bringing these little miniatures to life. I'm expressing myself in the way I want." There's no right or wrong answers to this stuff, and that's really important. I think a lot of the times, because now we're going to get philosophical as I just continue to do the same rote thing over and over again. A lot of times we forget that, we get focused on being the best, or we get focused on success, and we lose out on what success actually means. And success in the hobby simply means that you are enjoying the time you're setting aside to create something. Every person has this innate desire, this stamp to want to create. And we all create things in different ways. Some people sew, some people cook, some people paint, some people write stories, some people, they knit, they work on cars, they do whatever, That all of that is creation, all of that is important to who we are as humans, and it means so much. So let yourself enjoy it. This is your outlet to be whoever you want, to make the things you want. And more importantly, your outlet to experience and take part in a world, a galaxy, more specifically. Let's be honest, it's a galaxy when it comes to Star Wars. I got it. That we all love, that had an impact on us, right? I think that's part of the thing that's so compelling about games like Legion or X-Wing or Armada. We're getting to tell our own tales within that unit, within that galaxy, that are grounded in the thing that we love. They have firm foundation in the setting and all of that, but they become uniquely ours. Well, you can't see anything but the bottom of the base there. Isn't that exciting? But they become uniquely ours because they're our own versions of that story. It's why we all probably really liked action figures when we were kids, Why do children play with toys? They tell their own stories. They create their own worlds. We all want to create. And the hobby and painting, converting, playing games, it's all a way for us to experience that. And more importantly, a way for us to experience that in a communal setting. Because, I like playing games. I always liked playing toys with my kids, but man, it was really hard to engage with them when they just kind of did their own thing and the rules always changed. And you're like, well, I thought we were doing this. And it's like, no, now we're doing this. That's great for the person who's just, spontaneously making things up. And that's part of being a kid. But when you get a little older and you want that meaningful connection with somebody else, it doesn't really work when the person's just like, you can't play Calvin ball with anybody but Calvin, right? If you're not Calvin, that game doesn't work. It's not actually a game. You're just participating. And so the awesome part about the miniatures hobby and what we do is that everyone gets to play and everyone gets to have a role in telling their stories, from the way in which you paint your miniatures, to the way in which you construct your force, to the way in which you engage in battle on the tabletop. It's all component of telling your own very unique story with the person across the table from you. I don't know how we got off on this diatribe, but here we are. The folks who work with me day in and day out are just like, oh, here he goes again. It's a very classic speech I give all the time when we're talking about game design and what our goal is with everything. And the hope is that that's just the way it is. All right. Black's done. Moving on. I'm going to grab that gray color that I really liked, which was not that one. Maybe that one. Not that one. Where did it go? This is why you should pull your paints up before. There we go. I'm going to use this Rylith Gray, or Ryeth Gray. And this is just going to be the base for my markings. I find that it stretches out really nice. I'm going to take it, put a little bit in my palette, use a little bit of water to thin it out. I don't want it to be like a wash, but I want it to be a little thinner than I would normally use for a base coat because I do want it to stretch. And the reason I want it to stretch is I want to like lose some of that opacity to get a little translucency. And by doing that, it's going to hopefully give me a really quick highlight layer that I can play with right from the start. All right, here we go. So we're just going to think about what we want to do with these fellas. And I think we will. Ooh, that might be a little too thin. We'll find out. We'll do the side of this guy's helmet. We're just going to freeform this. I call this Bob Ross painting. We don't have a plan. We're just going to let the brush and the paint kind of lead us to some end result. And we're going to accept that that was what this miniature always wanted to be. And, you know, ultimately, if we make a mistake or we decide we don't really like where we wound up, the great part is we can fix it. We can make it a different. So come down here, get the side of that, side of the nose, come down kind of to a point, a little bit, a little bit. It's really quick. And again, you know, the oil wash step is going to give us a lot of that needed dimension and shade. So it's okay. Oh, I'm like so off camera. I apologize. I was getting like really into it here. I'll hit this shoulder pad over here. That we're only really looking for that one really just kind of top coat. And then we're going to let that oil wash do a lot of the work for the shading and the shadows. And honestly, you don't even have to do the oil coat if you don't want to. With this, you could use a really thin down black wash. You could just leave it because our zenith is already working if you like the brightness. There's a lot of different ways to kind of approach this. And of course, there's no right or wrong way because all the clones are kind of going to have their unique markings and they do things on their own. And the other thing I really like is, especially looking at a lot of the wolf pack references, their markings are really stripy. They're not super clean. You know, the 501st kind of has this really nice, usually this really nice like solid patterning. There's not a whole lot of like savagery to it. The Wolfpack stuff to me feels really feral. It has, you know, kind of a tribalistic design. It feels like war paint more than like military colors. And I like that a lot. It also means that you don't have to be nearly as clean as you would to get a really nice looking result because you are playing more with that kind of rough, hand painted color idea. And so it lets you really explore and mess around with stuff in a fun way. I'm just going to go, this guy will just be pretty gray across the top. We'll call that good. There we go. Sweet. All right, so we'll call that marking good. Move on to our commander. I think we're going to do the top stripes for him just to make him a little different. Which is similar to what we did to our commander. I guess this is the unit leader, not necessarily the captain or the commander. We already did that one last week from the specialist pack. I was asking when Plo Koon, the man, the myth, the legend from Commander Wolf, you know, I don't know. Hopefully, think, the goal is to definitely get to a lot of different characters and really experience the full breadth of that Star Wars universe. So he's certainly on the top of my wish list. Does that mean anything? I don't know. I'm just a guy, I just hang out, give suggestions. But I would imagine that someday, and hopefully sooner rather than later, we get to see Plo Koon and maybe Commander Wolf, all that good stuff. All right, what do we want to do with this guy? I think we're going to leave his bottom. We're going to do the top thigh pads just to be a little different. But we're only going to do the outsides of the thigh pads. Look at that. Look at this madness here. Madness. Let's knock that in. And then maybe, why not? We'll give him gray boots. I don't know why, but that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm feeling. Because I did the greaves on the last one, I'm going to leave the greaves completely white. And we're just going to do the boots and the exterior of the thigh pad. And then, most of them, the gray is here on the chest, but we have this gray here. So let's do this. Another really great trick, if you want to do these symbols, but you're not really confident in your free hands, is take a number like 3 or 4 pencil, a really soft leaded pencil, and you can go in and you can actually draw with the pencil on the mini, and you can draw out the design, and then you can just go in and fill out the design. And it's a really great kind of trick for really complex freehand designs, if you want to start drawing pictures and stuff on your minis, because it doesn't damage the paint. You can erase it. It's really, really light, but it gives you those guidelines to be confident to go in and know what you need to fill out and know what you want to do. So having a soft leaded pencil to do that kind of stuff on can be really, really beneficial, and I highly recommend picking one up or finding one. I mean, if you have an art kit sitting around somewhere, like my kids have like 5 or 6 art kits. I swear it's crazy. I guarantee you there's a soft leaded pencil in there, because no artist is without such a thing. All right, and we're going to do this. We're going to come down and do this. Maybe we'll go back through and make it different. All right, he's looking pretty good. Next one. I'm pretty good about this pace. We got 30 minutes in, a little bit of time left. I think we'll be all right. Might be able to do at least an oil wash on one of them. Ah, this guy. Where should we go on this guy? Let's see. We'll do this. We're going to go here. Actually, we'll go here. And we'll do the stripe like that. Hopefully you can also see how keeping that paint really nice and thin makes it kind of just run right where I want it to across these nice lines and stuff. And we'll come back over here and we'll do this. And we'll come up. I'm just kind of following some of the natural plating lines on the mini itself. And then, we'll do this. Kind of inverse what we did last time there. Kind of like a really cool savage grin thing going on. We'll do his chest plate though. Kind of like that. Like that. Slightly even. Good enough. It's kind of hiding behind the gun anyway. We'll definitely hit the shoulder pads, I think, on this guy, because that's kind of a common theme for most of the troopers that I've seen in all the reference. We'll get this shoulder pad over here. Just for funsies. And then, so we probably need to do this. Come up and over. Come up and down. Whoop. A little too far, so let's scrub some of that away. Yeah. So again, that second brush can be super useful in terms of pushing that paint where you want it to go. And you can blend stuff out too, so even if we weren't doing the oil wash, we could definitely utilize that paint to just blend out that color. Make that transition look really good. So let's go. Let's do this. Why not? We'll come in and hit this green. Hit this Vambrance. We'll do the Vambrance on this guy. Why not? That a little different. And then let's get spicy. Let's get spicy. Come in. This is where we stretch ourselves. Come back through and clean that up a little bit. We'll give them some cool kind of wolf teeth. A little rough war paint marking there because we like that. We're just going to do that all the way. Why not? We'll go all the way down. Let's see. So, like that, and I get really quiet because I'm looking for my directions. Can't find the address, so I'm going to get really quiet here. Ooh, kind of messed that up a little bit. I'll just fix it. We'll just fix it. Just blend it away. Blend it away. And then to really sell it, what we'll do is we'll go back through with our blacks and we'll kind of outline the stuff. And then that will help further differentiate kind of the color palettes and stuff. I don't want to get too caught up on these guys though. A little ways to go. So I'm going to do this side fully solid. We're going to make him not symmetric. Oof, hurts me. It hurts me. I love symmetry. I love symmetry. Not doing symmetrical designs is rough. It's rough. I'll do this whole groove actually. This whole thigh plate. Let's come back through and go like this. I do keep them in my dryer because I don't do laundry. We discussed that on some stream. Somebody asked like what I don't do, and I don't do laundry, so the dryer is the perfect place. Keeps them nice and warm and safe. Like that. We're just going to go a little crazier. We're going to come like this, come like this. We're just going to come down like so. Just to be even wilder. This guy, he really went to town personalizing. All right, next one. Let's get weird. We haven't gotten weird already. Let's get weird now. So we'll do just the chest plate like that. We'll do our kind of our triangle that we did before. Let's get that really gray. Come into his face. And we're going to do come down like this. Come down like this. We're just playing. like that. That looks pretty good. He's got the full gray face paint going on. And then, do we feel, oh, let's, I've done this line yet. Let's do this line. So we're going to hit the ridge around the helmet top and the bottom. So he'll have a lot of gray around that face. That's okay. Do that. And then just clean that line up a little bit. Then we'll come over and we'll just hit the inside. The whole thing. We'll just do the inside of it. Keep a little bit of that white on top. Like that. There. That looks pretty good. Grab some more paint, thin it out. A couple more to go. I will do the knee pads on this fella. Why not? Why not? Said these were going to be more uniform. I lied. Completely made that up because they're not uniform at all. These fellas are as different as can be. That's all right though. Showcasing their unique person. We're defining their unique personalities. I got to name them too. You know, we can't just not name them. I think we're going to do this just because it might be kind of fun looking. I don't really know if any of them pay too much attention to painting their backs, but they should. Yeah, you got to name all your clones. It's just a rule. Just like you got to give TX numbers to all your stormtroopers. Otherwise, what are you even doing with your life? How will you ever know which one's which? Go like this. Go like this. Go like this. The brush. It's really letting the brush kind of just define the stroke a little bit because I don't have to be perfect with it. So I can just kind of like mess around. Let's get this one. We haven't done this yet. So I'm going to hit this. I'm doing a lot of solid colors, but if I want to, I can easily go back with a white and I can build out little designs just to make it more interesting. Let's get his shoulder pad really quick. And this guy, he's going to be the rebellious one. He doesn't paint both his shoulder pads. We're just going to give him a oh, you know what? I don't like it. So he does. He's not rebellious. We just stopped it. Totally changed him. Not rebellious at all. He's as conforming clones can be. There we go. Sweet. Last one. Maybe this guy's the rebellious one. I don't know. We'll figure that part out. Let's do this. Let's figure out his faceplate. Do I ever use water transfer decals on my minis? I have in the past. I don't particularly love water transfers. I used them a lot when I used to do a lot of model airplanes when I was a kid with my dad. And I find them to be really finicky. So traditionally, I don't utilize them a lot. They can be really awesome. Dallas, our creative director, loves them and uses them all the time. You know, they help you with all those freehand details. Especially, oh, out of curiosity, so water transfer decals are great. You just have to make sure that you know what you're getting into with them and that you feel really comfortable and confident with applying them. They do have a working time. I would suggest practicing a little bit on minis that you don't particularly care about first. But as far as like you want to get if you wanted to get a Galactic Republic symbol on their shoulder pads, there's no way you should, I would never recommend doing that with a brush unless you're submitting something in competition. You're definitely going to be better off with the idea of using a water transfer decal, and it's totally worth the effort if that's something that you want to do with your clones or your stormtroopers or whatever. For me, those types of details are usually things that I don't particularly worry about too much. Ooh, I kind of like this. Let's make this rough. That was just kind of accidental, but now I really like what's going on. Use my finger, do some scritchy scratches. Yeah, ooh, that's kind of neat. I like that. So water transfer decals are great, and obviously tried and true in terms of hobby miniatures in general. So if it's something that really interests you or that you think would be really neat, to add that extra level of like customization that you want, I would say absolutely do it. Go in and take a look at it. These miniatures will take transfer decals perfectly well. Just make sure that you follow all of the recommendations for the decal that you want to use, and you'll wind up with great results. Take that extra time. Again, if you've never done it before, practice a little bit first, because it is tricky in terms of getting the timing right and stuff. Because you do have some working time, and you have to have the right tools. Make sure that you have tweezers and you have a nice brush to be able to push the paint off and all that stuff. But once you do, you're gonna really get those results that you want. You're gonna be able to do all that really fine detail super easy without having to paint it on, not worrying about a stencil or anything like that. Somebody asked why I'm not using the handles. It's because I don't actually have enough handles for the whole unit. Normally what I would do is I'd put them on a paint stick or something, and then I could manipulate them all really quickly. But I would have problems manipulating that on camera. So instead, I'm just utilizing my fingers around the base, which is fine. It's a little harder in some ways to get good angles on them because you're kind of limited in how you can hold the mini, but in a pinch, it works perfectly fine. We're gonna do the full helmet thing again, but that's the only reason. If I had enough handles, or if I had some blue tack, I probably would just use one handle and blue tack and pull them on and off as I needed to switch through. But this is definitely kind of like unit painting for me on camera. We're just switching in and out really fast. We're gonna go ahead and get this stuff, I think. And then I want to go back through maybe with a little bit of white and change up some stuff. And then I'm just going to do the very edges of his rebreather, I think, or whatever this thing is. I assume it's some kind of breathing apparatus, some kind of filtering apparatus, It's got to be. There. All right, cool. I'm pretty happy with this stuff. I think these fellas are looking really nice, pretty fun. So let's really quickly go through, and I'm gonna go back to my black really quick, and we're just going to very quickly on this fellow alone. So I just want to add that extra level of differentiation between the marking that I did and the white. Just very carefully, I'm just going to go through and give it a little bit of an edge line. And again, using that secondary brush to just kind of thin out my lines if they go a little thick. You don't have to be perfect on this, but it will really take those freehand details to that next level, because it's going to allow the eye. The eye really needs that extra help reading that separation between those two colors. So having them kind of like mute together is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's going to look a lot sharper, especially at the scale of, these minis, for the eye to have that extra level of differentiation. Same with same idea behind drawing like a picture or a comic. You get that dark lining going on. And you want to do this really with anything. So if we weren't going to do kind of the oil darkening step, then going back through and doing panel lines, when you do your tanks and stuff, panel lines are so huge to the overall success story. Or going through and reshading up these areas here, it lets your eye read those different segments. That extreme contrast of light to pure black helps your eye pick out the detail. It's already on the mini, but it's just so small your eye can struggle to see it. So this is all about helping. And we talk about miniature painting as kind of like optical illusions. You can absolutely 100%, and there are painters all the time who do this. You can absolutely paint something not on the mini and make it look like the mini's there. Weathering effects are kind of like that. Doing chips in paint and stuff on your tanks and everything. That is 100% an illusion done through the painting. Scratching chips, playing with how a two-dimensional canvas artist would fake 3 dimensions. However, one of the great things about minis is that they are 3-dimensional objects. They do have volume and shape and all of that good stuff already. So it just comes down to, for us, a question of accentuating and using smart techniques through painting, like washing and shading and highlighting and all that, to help the eye better pick out those details by doing things like accentuating volume, using a lot of really high contrast stuff. Those types of techniques are going to make everything look good. Okay, so we're going to call this clone sergeant, this clone leader. We're going to call him pretty good for right now. There's a couple of things that I might go back and change up, but I have 12 minutes, and I think that's going to be enough time to show kind of the really quick down and dirty oil wash technique for this guy. So you want to make sure that the acrylics are completely dry. It's really important to note that you don't have to seal the mini when you're working with oil paints and oil washes like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your oil color, and I will bring my fancy dancy oil palette over. So I don't use a plastic one for this. I use an aluminum one. It just makes cleanup a little easier and all of that stuff. You can use any type of oil paint that you want. The really big thing is don't use your nice acrylic paint brushes for your oils, because it's just going to make you sad. Oils are pretty rough on brushes. You're going to be using a lot of not water. Of course, read all of the safety directions and stuff like that, because it's going to be important. So I'm just going to put a dot of oil paint in here. Now my next step is to really thin it out a lot. So I'm going to take my white spirits or my mineral spirits, depending on where you are in the world. They're called different things. And I just want to dilute this oil down to a really, really nice wash. So I'm going to take it down a lot. By using the palette, I can mess with different things, and it's all great. But again, we're just looking for something that's really thin. And I'm just using ivory black for this. You can, of course, start playing with a lot of different colors and stuff. So you can kind of see how thin this is getting. I might even go a little thinner. But this is part of the plan. The nice thing is that with oils, you don't have to worry too much about your drying times, and it's really easy to erase mistakes if you want to. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to just wipe off my brush really quick on a paper towel. Your brush should never go into the thinner. if you're painting with oils, but we're not, we're doing washes, so we're okay here. So then once I have this oil kind of down, and this is the one that I'm pretty happy with, we'll see if I want to thin it down even further. We're going to do a little test. That seems pretty good. You're just going to take it and you're just going to kind of mush it over everything. And this is a little thick still, which is fine because I can fix that. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of my thinner, wash this down even more. And I'm just going to start pushing this around. Whoop, I'm going to come back down. And I'm just going to get this guy nice and dark. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's no way. This is now ruined. And if this were an acrylic wash, 100%, that would be the truth. We would not have a whole lot of realms to go. Like we could probably take a paper towel and, like smudge it off and stuff, but it probably wouldn't work super well otherwise. So now we've got it really dark. We've gone to quite the extreme. You would let this dry a little bit. You'd grab a Q-tip. And then what you would do with your Q-tip is you just start taking off paint on the upper surfaces, like so. And the first step you would do is you do this with a dry Q-tip, obviously. And you have all the control in the world about what you want. So if you want that darker look, you can absolutely stick with that darker look. If you want to take more paint away from certain areas, you can. The goal here with the way I do it and kind of the way that I did it on the last clones is, I'm just kind of letting the Q-tip do the work by rubbing it over the mini itself. And when you think it's too dark, you just kind of go back through and do that. But you can see how I'm pulling up that oil wash, except for in the recesses. And so now it's really just staying where I want it to. And the next step after doing the dry wipe is, if you still want to take it up further, you take a little bit of your white spirits or your mineral spirits, and you can do kind of a wet clean, and the mineral spirits will help pull up even more of that wash. So this is a pretty fast and really controllable technique, and it works really great over like whites and stuff like that, but it also just allows you to do those flat colors really quick and play with a really nice thing. And if you get a little fuzzies from the Q-tip on the mini, it's fine. You just pull those off. It's really not a big deal. So like now I'm at the point where I'm pretty good on the dry wipe. So I'm probably going to shift over, do a little bit of mineral spirits just straight, and I'll clean it up even more. He's going to be a little shiny for a little bit as he dries. It, of course, takes a while. They won't stay glossy. So this is not varnished at all. This is one that had this exact same process done to it. So exact same thing I just did. There's a little bit of a sheen, and you can absolutely take that off with, your dull coat, which you should absolutely do. You should always spray your minis with some kind of finishing thing. But even just at its base, right, the shininess does go away as it dries. You're seeing a lot of gloss from the spirits themselves and from the oil wash. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with this is that oils take a long time to dry. So it's not like this guy's going to be done and dry tonight. It's going to be 3-4 days where you can touch them, absolutely, and you can manipulate them and stuff, but you're not going to want to finish off the coat or like dull coat them until they're completely dry. And the amount of so I'm just using that to do an even further clean. And again, this is where I do want to be kind of careful about where I'm going, because the more that I work it, the more color I'm going to be able to take off. And because it takes a long time for this to dry, you can honestly come back to it later and still erase more of this dirt and grime of this oil wash. So even when I stop here in the next 5 minutes, if I decide, oh, he's still a little too dark, put a little mineral spirits on my Q-tip, come back and scrub them off even more. So the working time can work really to your advantage as well with this technique because you can play a lot with it, even beyond just when you were working it in general. But it's a very cool. There's a ton of great content out there about how to utilize oil paints, and I've only really started scratching the surface. Um, Absolutely excited to dive in more to it, but I thought this would be a really fun kind of first foray into things because I found that it works really well for what I want to do with my clones. It gets me a really great, unique kind of looking white that I haven't seen in a while, from all of the different techniques. And there's a lot of really great, there's so much awesome content out there about how-tos and tutorials and people doing things different ways and that stuff. I hadn't really seen anybody apply this technique straight to clones, so I was curious to give it a try. And I was pretty thrilled with how it turned out on mine, especially with the grays of the wolf pack. It gives you kind of that early Clone Wars-ish kind of feel where there's a bit of a brown to it because of the ivory black. And of course, again, you can mix a lot of different oil colors. You can do different washes. So there's a lot of ways to kind of approach it to get some different results and to have some really nice effects. But you can see I'm getting pretty happy with where this guy is now from the cleaning. And I can keep going even further and take more and more of that oil wash off. I could go back and reapply the oil wash if I wanted to, if I felt like I went too far and lost some of that color differentiation that I wanted. But I would say that we're pretty close to where our first clone trooper wound up. So it's looking really good. Once he dries up, he's going to look really nice. But you can see how that oil wash is still in the crevices. It's tinting all the cracks. The belt has some nice differentiation in it and all of that stuff. And we were able to do that in a matter of 8 to 10 minutes and get kind of that really great result. And as he dries and mats down, it's going to look even better when we get rid of that glossiness. So there you go. That will wrap up today's stream, I believe. So let's just go ahead and pull out a little side by side to show you kind of how big of a difference that oil wash can make. So here is our washed with the oils. Here's our not washed with the oils. Both perfectly acceptable as far as tabletop standards go, but you're definitely getting a very different tone and style of that armor, where this one is a lot more clean and a little more, I would say, animated in terms of just its brightness and its flat kind of nature. And we could go through and panel line some more and do stuff like that. And this to me feels a little bit more like a real world color scheme where you've got that dirt and that dinge. It's not pure white anymore, and so it goes. And yeah, this technique, I mean, honestly, it can be used just about anywhere. I'm super thrilled. I've seen amazing stuff done with magenta oil wash inks over skin to really accentuate like skin tones and stuff. So I've just started scratching the tip. I plan to do a lot more of it on the stream as I get more confident and learn more stuff with it. So hopefully you all can be inspired and give something else to go with. All right, well, with that, I'm gonna flip this camera over. And thank you all for joining me today. I hope you had a blast. I'm very excited to be able to hang out with y'all and paint and show some new techniques and tricks and learn from you as well. Be sure to mark your calendars. March 18th through the 20th, we have mini extravaganza coming. It's going to be an awesome 3-day spectacle. We have like eight plus hours of streaming per day. We're going to be covering all kinds of things with all the different games that Atomic Mass Games makes, including Legion, X-Wing, and Armada. We also have some game surprises in as well. And of course, our social media is going to be buzzing with a lot of cool content and all of that good stuff. Be sure to join us back tomorrow as Dallas Kemp breaks out the paintbrushes and gets to work on some pretty sweet miniatures as well. That'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific Thursday. And then, of course, John Schaefer will be back on Friday. I don't know what he's painting Legion-wise, but I'm sure it's going to be great. Maybe he'll continue on with the droid specialists. I'm not entirely sure, but our social media folks will be telling you about that as well. Until then, keep those brushes loaded with paint. Continue to have fun. Stay safe, be beautiful, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.